Greetings. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll consider a recent film, Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. This was a very bad grade B movie. It stars, of course, Jim Carey as Ace Ventura. Ian McNeice as a character of Fulton Greenwald, as I made it, and a cast of many. This particular film relies a great deal on the undoubted comedic abilities of Jim Carey, but unfortunately it does not work. He is a comedian with a highly stylized kind of format. He needs a foil in the same sense that the Three Stooges or the Marx Brothers had foils. He needs a foil of that kind, not a straight man type of foil. Therefore, his usage of the very good actor Ian McNeice, whom we happen to laud in the movie we reviewed, The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill but Came Down a Mountain. His undoubted talent was wasted in this movie as he was left, along with much of the audience, to basically gaze at this really stupid, stylized miming joined to really idiotic non sequiturs, which seemed to characterize the humor of Jim Carrey at this point in time. He did, I'll admit, make one good movie, The Mask, a movie which suited him to a T, his talents, and I think that whoever put that movie together managed somehow or other to discipline Carey to some extent by perhaps employing a good screenwriter. But at any rate, the special effects helped also. But at any rate, this particular film appears to be a budget film, and for this reason, I'm a little concerned that Ian McNeice and the rest did not get a good check. They certainly deserve it. They did not get anything else out of this movie. This particular movie takes a kind of prologue opening. That is, the opening had very little to do with the film, the subsequent film, the meat of the film. It takes place on a kind of a mountainous area I take to be West United States, possibly Alaska even. But it involved, say, an opening scene of snow-capped mountains, and it has a red helicopter with a rescue logo on it, sort of hovering and obviously searching for someone or something. And after a little bit, they see, and we see, a solitary figure on the face of a mountain climbing upward. And as they get closer, we see that it's Ace Ventura, Jim Carey. And of course, Jim Carey immediately gives out with one of his stupid non sequiturs or barely reasoned comment, certainly not funny, which was, "You guys could put somebody's eye out with that thing." Words to the effect. At any rate, he converses with the helicopter people for a little bit. They apparently hold him in some high esteem. They buzz off. Thereafter, he goes up and feeds a little chick by regurgitation and shows a typical vulgar kind of humor, which is his trademark. He gets to the top and we find out this whole mission is to save a raccoon, which is on its face silly and trivializes the whole rescue process. And it makes, by implication, of little value, it seems to say, those things that humans do, because it is mocking that humans do for one another in the way of rescue. After this opening prologue, we find Jim has gone to a monastery in apparently Nepal or Tibet or some such to presumably recover from the trauma of the loss of the raccoon in the opening prologue type of opening. He is at this point met by Ian McNeice, playing a Fulton Greenwald, a Brit, seeking him out to do pet detective work. As an aside, Ian McNeice, character Fulton, makes it known to this leader or spokesperson that he is seeking one Ace Ventura, and tries to discover if Ace Ventura is in fact at that monastery. And the leader says, "Well, you know, we have no names." And finally he says, "Well, he's the guy who talks through his ass." And, "Oh yeah, sure, we know him, of course. Come on, I'll take you right to his room." And this is kind of a signature, apparently, of Ace Ventura. I remember a few years back some Nigerian acquaintances telling me that a story about a woman who had been killed in Nigeria, and she was brought before the elders and a shaman, and with the aid of magic and so forth, was able to identify the men who killed her by means of having her vagina talk. And I thought to myself, well, wouldn't that be extraordinary if this detective, Ace Ventura, who talks to his ass, should run across a party that talked, a dead person who talked through the vagina, and what a conversation that would be. Well, anyway, it's just the kind of scene, too, that Ace Ventura, Jim Carey, would have. And I'm sure if he had known that story, it would have gone into this particular plot. But be that as it may, thereafter, he is going to also be paid $20,000 if he does so. He plays a little hard to get at first because of his claim not to have reached intergalactic oneness, and he had to stay until he had reached this level of spirituality. However, the others at the monastery are eager to get him out, apparently, and they assure him, the leader, spokesperson, that he has attained this oneness. You can see it in his eyes. He's given a talisman that kind of reminds one of the use of medals in The Wizard of Oz, the pinning of a hero's medal on the lion, which is an outward sign that this is a hero. So this talisman given by the apparently Buddhist leader there at the monastery supposedly would be an outward sign that he had attained intergalactic oneness. Satisfied, he makes his departure, not without, of course, an absurd departure involving a slinky. A plane trip exposes once again the kind of idiotic humor that is the trademark of Ventura. He even seems to borrow a little bit from Lithgow's there's a creature on the wing gambit. Landing in Africa, we see the usual stock footage. We see a cheetah resting on the top of a jagged crest outcropping, and we're reminded a little bit that this is, once again, a grade B movie. The same stock footage you would expect, and of course cheetah brings to mind the sidekick of Tarzan. It just so happens that Ace Ventura also has a monkey as a sidekick, a creature he calls Spike, and this particular creature actually was with him on the assault of the mountain in the attempt to rescue the raccoon. Well, at any rate, we have Ace Ventura, we have an inane travel scene going to the British consulate in which he's bouncing all over the place apparently, but when the camera pulls back we see that the pavement is rather smooth. It's asphalt apparently, and quite smooth and good. And so this is just stupid. And then he cuts through the jungle for no reason at all, and rolls the Land Rover, and ends up perfectly in line with the other Land Rovers, a little battered, but in perfect alignment. Gets out, goes to the British consulate, welcomed by the head, briefed. We have a slide show of possible suspects in the bat napping. At this point in time, Ace does not know it's a bat, but the term sacred animal is used. During the slideshow, we have the usual expectations from an Ace Ventura. That is, we have the hand-finger silhouettes in which he tries to be comic, where men on the slide might be shown picking their nose or something of this sort. The quintessential Jim Carey type humor. He also gets an opportunity to go to a party which is simultaneously going on at this British consulate, and he gets to do a kind of a Marx Brothers routine where the vulgar rich meet the vulgar poor. In one of these particular episodes, he once again gets to be or indicate himself to be sensitive to the needs of animals, to be, as one of the guests put it, an activist. One of the guests, a little man with a bald head and a big mustache, who Jim Carey called the Monopoly Man. This particular man has correctly labeled Ace Ventura as this ghastly man, and that pretty much hits the nail on the head. Be that as it may, Ace Ventura knocks this guy out and wears him as a kind of stole to protest the Red Fox stole which this man's date is wearing. This seemed to please a lot of people in the audience, but to my mind it shows a consistent pattern amongst these animal lovers. They seem to love animals, but have something of a detestation for humans. There's so many of them. Now, we go from here with the help of Ian McNeice to the Wachati village, meet the king, a very fat guy, looks like he could be a sumo wrestler. We are shown their culture, and this all seems very insulting and non-authentic. The king spits in the eye of Ace Ventura, and Ian McNeice says, "Oh, this is a wonderful show of friendship. You're well liked here." The chief's son then spits in the other eye, and so, being well accepted, Ace Ventura then decides to show that he himself has friendly instincts, and pulls out every piece of mucus in his face, apparently, and it splatters everybody. Fortunately, we did not see this scene, only the results, and pretty disgusting at that. Now, this particular tribe, the Wachati, are the people who have the sacred animal which has vanished. They have a repository. Ace Ventura has shown this repository. and at every opportunity he commits sacrilege. The first instance of this, the chief pulled out a knife, and I thought the friendship has ended, but cooler heads saved the day. But even so, nothing stopped Ace Ventura from, at every instance, when the chief was not looking, to commit sacrilege by stomping or jumping or dancing on the sacred repository. This particular tribe on that particular day also was going to have a feast. Now, at this feast, the princess, the daughter of the Wachati king or chief, was going to perform what is called the virgin dance of seduction. And this particular dance did not look African at all to me. It was rather slow, and it had a good deal of the Tahitian look to it. It was pleasing. Now, the use of hands seemed almost Southeast Asian, Thai-like, but not African. And but at any rate, she dances in almost a linear way, slow, a Tahitian kind of walk dance, undulations and so forth, until she is kind of like belly button to Ace Ventura's nose. And we have a cut from this particular feast. Now, there is a small episode where the Ace Ventura character gets to praise the food and go through a stale routine about the utensils being made of guano, and pretending that he did not know what guano was, an extraordinary kind of piece of info, because at the British consulate, when spying the character Quinn, who has a raven on his shoulder, Ace Ventura immediately gives forth with the Latin designation for the raven. So therefore, suggesting a good deal of learnedness in the realm of animals on the part of Ace Ventura. Incidentally, the character Quinn is the primary misdirection in this particular film, in this whodunit. That particular day at the Wachati also allowed Ace a chance to investigate. He goes to the repository, looks around for evidence, and finds a black feather. Of course, additional evidence that leads him astray. If I may digress, and the problem is basically this, that there are two tribes that are joining, one called the Watutu, who are a hostile, savage tribe, and the other, the Wachati, who are a peaceful tribe. The Wachati tribe has a sacred animal, and this sacred animal is missing. Now, the princess, the daughter of the chief of the Wachati, is scheduled to marry the first son of the chief of the Watutu. In this tribal marriage should bring tranquility amongst these two tribes, and this is the hope of the British apparently. However, the Watutu had asked for and had been given as dowry from the princess by means of the chief this sacred animal. And now with the sacred animal vanished, the Watutu consider that this is an insult and also a curse upon them, and have vowed that unless they have the sacred animal, they're going to exterminate the peaceful Wachati. So this is a grave situation, and they want Ace Ventura, pet detective, to locate the sacred animal. Going back to an earlier point, the same princess who had treated all to this particular dance is now sitting down by Ace, and he offers her the blowgun, and there may be tones to that also. But at any rate, she uses the blowgun, and then we cut from this to see to what they're shooting at, and we see that it's a Wachati warrior his torso is just peppered with what looks like spit wads. And I thought that this was a kind of a demeaning usage of presumably a warrior of some sort. But at any rate, we then learn from the princess that she is concerned because in her upcoming marriage, she is concerned that she won't please her groom-to-be, her husband-to-be. She says to Ace, I have never known a man. And we then become quite aware that she is offering herself to him. He tells her that he has taken a vow of celibacy. And she says, well, perhaps this will persuade you, and drops her wrap, exposing her breast, presumably. And Ace then goes through a lot of I've got to consider my intergalactic oneness and all that kind of stuff. And she then kind of chills out a little bit, puts back a wrap, and we see an episode in which their faces come very close, and Jim's lips part, his tongue kind of comes out, and then the princess's lips part and her tongue comes out and they meet. And I thought to myself, this looks like the mating of clowns with the pseudopods sticking out and so forth. And it was rather bizarre, to tell you the truth. And at any rate, the scene is concluded with a shot of Jim's tent and apparently some sort of sexual going on. And there is a timid Ian McNeice approaching, and we hear all this, oh mama, and then Ian goes in, and we see a hot and bothered Jim kind of protecting himself with some kind of blanket or something or other, and claiming to have been saying his mantra, and sort of chiding by implication Ian for bothering him at this religious moment. Thereafter, the next day, they go on and pursue the investigation a bit more. The Fulton character, Ian McNeice, takes Ace to a cave entrance. Ace is not enthusiastic about this at all. We learn that he's phobic about bats. It's about this time that he learns that the sacred animal is a great white bat. Well, this is also kind of peculiar because it seems strange that Hollywood makes the sacred creature of this African tribe a white bat. And it seems to be a consistent pattern. We saw in Congo where the special apes were a white-furred ape and guarding a sacred spot, perhaps, in King Solomon's mine. But at any rate, we have here a white bat, and this seems a little bit extraordinary. And going into the cave, we see that Jim is really phobic about these bats, and he starts screaming birds from hell and flying rats and so forth. Well, this is also kind of calls to mind that rats are basically phallic symbols, and we wonder if this is not suggestive of some sort of a problem within the psyche of Ace Ventura. And also, along that same note, it would suggest that phallic symbolism passes on to the white bat, which again makes it a very peculiar sacred object for this tribe. Be that as it may, Jim pursues the evidence, and he looks at Quinn basically as his primary target. One of the only really funny scenes in this film, from my point of view, occurred in this particular investigation when he gets into a contraption, a rhinoceros contraption. Basically, it seems to run like a tank and goes and spies upon Quinn talking to another gentleman. Also, Ace Ventura gets to the village of the Watutu. This is a very austere Jejune village setting. One wonders why the elders of the tribe even picked this particular area. It doesn't look like it has any grass at it at all. There are skulls all over the place, human skulls, animal skulls, bones, and so forth. Of course, this is standard Hollywood grade B symbols of a savage and dangerous tribe. We see one of the people, one of the men with leopard skins and a human skull dangling, and sure enough it turns out to be the witch doctor, the shaman of the tribe, an important figure. And he is standing next to the king, and apparently some kind of ceremony is going on, and we see a lot of poorly conceived African dance, basically a bunch of stomping and leaping. And this particular tribe apparently favors the usage of heavy application of white chalky talc as part of their rituals, and they are each heavily designed. What this particular village has in the way of wealth, I don't know, besides the skulls and that chalky material. And in fact, that chalky material may be made out of bone, as far as I can tell. Interestingly, at the British consulate, Ace Ventura goes before the head of the consulate and accuses him of being either the mastermind behind the bat napping or the agent of the forces that work. As a result, Ace lets out some sort of yell which brings animals of all sorts to his rescue. In conclusion, well, the last scene of this particular movie involves the happy marital ceremony by which the tribes are united. The princess is wedded to the first son of the Waitutu chieftain. They go to a marriage chamber, a kind of a hut set aside for this purpose, and they are going to consummate the marriage before the witnessing tribes. But a pause occurs, and the son, the groom, excitedly exits the hut, and he screams words which, when translated, "She is not a virgin." And then we have Ace Ventura looking a little nonplussed, saying, "He can tell that?"